Marketing.
All right, welcome everyone. My name is Zachary Weaver, and this is Democracy in a Box. We host and promote civil conversations. We call this our 478 conversation because we've based it, it's come out of the Rotary four-way test, 7 areas of focus, and 8 pillars of positive peace. And the four-way test is what we lean on the most as a way to we invite you to think about it when you're thinking about things that you want to talk about. The first question is it the truth? The second question is it fair to all concerned? The third question is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And the fourth question is, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And so you can think about that freely, but also you can speak freely. So if something that you're wanting to talk about and you're not sure if it meets all those questions, you can still bring it up and we can talk about it, because this is a civil conversation where we want everyone to have the freedom to express what is on your mind, what is on your mind most, and maybe what you aren't able to talk about with other people or in other circumstances. If you have something, what you talk about, you can bring up something that is maybe a difficult topic, or you can bring up something that you're really passionate about. We want to welcome all of that here. And you can talk about, if you're a part of a group or an organization, I want to encourage that you can, or a project or something, you can talk about that. That's very likely what you're most excited about, and we want to hear about it. So I guess self-promotion is encouraged, is what I'm saying. I think that's a very good place to start. And if you have any feelings about the conversation, if you have any ideas about how we can do this, we're really just starting out with this, so we would love to get feedback on it. We would love to hear what are ways that this would work better for you, that this would be more helpful to you. We would love for this to be something kind of very satisfying. I was going to say even addictive in a way of, like, we want civil conversation to be something that you want to come back to, that this is a place that is rewarding or meaningful or fulfills something, so that more people can be engaged in conversations that open us up to talking with other people. So with all that said, I want to start at, one technical thing. If you don't want to talk during the conversation, you just want to listen, that's fine. Just put yourself on mute or keep yourself on mute. And otherwise I will start off. I'll just ask everyone, what do you want to talk about more than anything else? We're going to do a lightning round of that, just a quick one, and then we'll let the conversation flow from there. Feel free to speak freely, or I might ask questions if we get to a point where it dies down. So Anna, I know you are on mute, but I also know I think you probably have some things to share. So what would you like to talk about more than anything else?
I have a question before we go into it.
Yes,
Starting with introduction, simply because I'm new to this thing.
Yes, absolutely. So could we combine that and have everyone say your name and what you want to talk about?
I'd love a little bit background, like what interested them, how they're involved, all of that kind of stuff as well. If like they could also. just talk about what they want to talk about.
Sure. I think that's great. So yes, Anna, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Anna Anger. I live in Michigan and I am a high school student. I'm a senior and I want to talk about the petroleum industry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anahita, or do you want to go next?
Me?
Yes. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong.
No worries. It's Anahita, stress on the second day.
Anahita.
Yes, there you go. Hi, I'm Anahita. I graduated from USC last year. Don very nicely invited me, so thank you for that. I'm based in Los Angeles, from India, in New York, so all over the place. And I'm currently working on a project which Don had invited me to bring up called Agents of Influence, which is game. I'd love to get your feedback on it, Adam. For middle school, high school students, we're still kind of testing it, but to kind of combat misinformation. And thanks to Don's suggestion and alignment with the 4-way test and the Rotary, we've actually been starting all presentations that we've had with the 4-way test and how it's impacted people's lives. So I actually have some interesting stories if you want to hear about that I could share with all of you. And the game itself is very aligned with the test as well, which is just an interesting thing to explore and some of the Rotary areas of focus. Happy to pass the baton on.
Thank you. Brenda, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I'm Brenda and I'm in Kansas City. I would like to talk about why, well, it's kind of a combination, like the public schools, what we use them for, and why people are so willing to pay more for something that they want to learn. You know, like 2 different kinds of teaching.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Don.
Wow. Hi, I'm Don Bender. I'm in Kansas City. The Democracy in a Box is kind of an outgrowth of a multi-year project that we have been working on to address the dysfunction of our government in the United States. And originally, I was passionate about addressing the issue of dark money in politics and Citizens United. And that's kind of evolved into trying to get down to the basics of why is our democracy in the state that it is in, and kind of come to the conclusion that it boils down to civic literacy, civic engagement, and the necessity for civility among people. And that the founding ideals are fantastic. The hard part is implementation. So I'm going to pass on what I want to talk about because I would love to talk about all 3 of these topics if I can do that.
Very good. Yes, I love that, Don. And I'm Zachary Weaver. I am in Overland Park, Kansas, which is near Kansas City. And I know Don from a long time ago. We were part of same homeschooling and unschooling group together. And then Don got me interested in getting big money out of politics. And here we've, as he talked about, we've evolved to this project where we feel like civil conversation is at the root of all positive change. So, oh, and what I would love to talk about is helping people reach their happy level of income, imagining a world where everyone has that. So that's what I have to share. And I think, Anna, I know you have some time restraints, so I was wondering if you would go into talking about the petroleum industry a little bit more now.
I know that I brought that up, but after hearing Brenda's idea, I'm really interested in your idea about public schools.
Okay.
So I'd like to pass the baton on and hear more about that.
Oh my. Okay, so what are we really using the public schools for? Socializing our kids in a way that somebody else wants them socialized? Why are the teachers not paid well? And why are people so willing to pay more money for something that they want to learn as opposed to what they're forced to learn? Just throwing questions out there. Does anybody have answers? Yes, you.
Always good. Well, you know me. I have strong opinions about all of this, but I just have. Could I add a couple more questions?
Sure.
I've been really interested. The more I learn about the history of public education in this country, the more fascinated I am, but also the more disheartened I am, because it seems like we've used public education, at least in the last 75 to 100 years, to try to cure all of the things that we can't address some other way. And it's like, the phrase kicking the can down the road, literally, I think that's what we're doing. We're saying, well, it's too late for the adults, but we can do this experiment through the public schools. So I guess I'm always amazed at what we ask public schools to do with, like you said, Brenda, with next to no funding. And there seems to be a total disjoint between the simple math of if you really are believe in something, then you put your money where your mouth is. And yet we have the same cycle over and over again, that maybe the whole system of funding our public schools is messed up, because we rely on some weird bake sale combination of federal, state, and local funding. And we also fund it with property taxes. For the most part, almost all school districts are funded with property taxes. And the anti-taxing wave that's been in effect for so long has really starved a lot of schools from the money they need. But then you also have this, I think it's a great microcosm of democracy, because if you've ever watched a school board meeting, sometimes the most extreme but most vocal voices are the ones that are guiding the discussion. I think the democracy of public school is a great idea, and the implementation is really difficult.
Hmm. I always like what he brings to the table. So what about when they put labels on kids? Because their behavior is a little different from the other kids. And when my son was in school, they wanted to hold him back 2.5 years. And put him in, what is the program that they put him on so they can get more money for putting them in special education? Is it an IEP? Is that the one? Okay. So they want him to do 2.5 senior years. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you guys are getting paid for this IEP. is there an age that you would not allow him to come back? And they told me it was 21 because they wouldn't want him contributing to the delinquency of minors. And at that point, I pulled him out. He got his GED and started college classes. So it was very disheartening for me.
Do you know what their process of determining things like that are?
No.
So just like a related conversation over here, full disclosure, I don't know a ton about, public school systems, especially in the US. I never went to one myself, but something I'm interested in is the issue of transparency. And I think that applies across different kind of processes, whether it's the democratic process of a country, or whether it's even bureaucratic processes in schools and even in corporations and other institutions like that. So just a question I'd be interested in is the question of like, what made them decide that? I think the best way to start most difficult conversations is alignment. What are the things you can agree on? And
Yeah.
I think something that, in this particular situation that would be possible to agree on is that probably what's good for their students is good for them. What kind of colleges they're going into, their graduation levels, all of that actually, serves to their advantage if they can show high rates for that, to kind of attract their particular, like the next generation of students to their institution. And if they are separating students into these categories, at least in a more official capacity, there's a lot of conversations to have about unofficial categorization. So things like troublemakers, teachers' pets, goody two-shoes, things like that. But in at least the official categorization, I imagine that there's some requirement for a process to suggest something like that. And I like to believe that it's good to, start conversations believing the other person has good intentions. So I'd like to believe that whatever they did for their son was what they really believed was best for your son. And then it's about how do we kind of get to a point of, as the four-way test suggests, mutual benefit. What situation is one where everybody benefits from? How can you see eye to eye? And I wonder if you had any of those conversations with them, or if you have any insight on that.
A little bit. So when he was in 8th grade, they decided that they wanted to test him for ADD, which he had 0 hyperactivity. He wasn't interested in what they had to offer, and they wanted to medicate him. He tried a medication and he didn't like that, so I wasn't going to force him to do that. And I asked them to regroup and come up with some ideas. And when they signed him up on the IEP, they wanted me to come up with ideas. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought they were well-versed in dealing with this. And that was kind of supposed to be their area of expertise. And at the same time, he tested 2nd-year college level for creative writing in the 8th grade. And I'm like, I think they're missing something here. Isn't there something, can we focus on his strengths and maybe not his weaknesses? And that was kind of the experience that we had.
I'm sorry that you had that experience. Sounds like it was really tough for you and your family, and very tough for an 8th grader to be told that they're in some ways inadequate, even when they are performing so well in different areas. So that's kind of across the board a challenge. I'm curious, did he test positive for ADD, or did they just try to medicate him without any proof?
No, they tested him and he had a psych evaluation and the testing, and they said Yes, that he was ADD, but I found that if you present him with something that he's more interested in, he doesn't have a problem with it. He was bored to death.
That's
And
totally fair.
if he'd had more choices in what he wanted to learn, he would have chosen to learn Latin. He just wasn't the run-of-the-mill student.
And just like this is out of curiosity, how's he doing now?
He is 39 years old and he's an activist for KC Tenants, and they stand up for homelessness. They organized they unionized the homeless here. They stand up for the people who live in the eviction machines, where nobody lasts more than 2 months and they're out, and for affordable housing.
Congratulations. It seems like
Thank you.
something he cares about, and you should be very proud.
Yes.
I think just like I'm just spitballing.
So I'm going to log out in a minute, but thank you all for your time in this discussion. So I definitely have some things to think about with my own school, and thank you for everything you guys have contributed. I had no idea what an IEP was. Now I know a little something. So I hope you all have a good day and carry on.
Bye, Anna.
Bye, Anna. Thanks. We can continue this next time.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Anna.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Me, Brenda, who's going ahead?
Or I guess I don't know. Zachary, do you have any?
Oh,
As
I mean,
someone who did you ever attend school?
no, I've never attended any kind of school or had any kind of formal education. And I think I was thinking about Don and I are probably over here really resonating with everything that both of you are talking about, just because we were a part of such a unique community in having a really large secular homeschooling and unschooling group that we were a part of, and we see that again and again with kids, and this is really, I mean, that's the principle behind unschooling is, you know, let the child or the kid choose what they want to learn about, what they're interested in, and the idea that is what brings in, that actually leads them to learning about things that other people maybe feel like they need to force them to learn. And I was just reflecting on how it's a really unschooling. I love unschooling and homeschooling, and I would love to see more of some of those ideas worked into something like a public school system, because I know that not all families feel like they can or want to do that, but I still crave having that freedom for the kids.
I like that. I wish I had had more faith in, there was another opportunity that came up. It was Westport Academy. What was his name? Dr. Steven Siebert. And what he did is you get an attorney and you prove that the public school system has failed your child, and then they have to pay for this other schooling, and it does allow the children to pick their studies and learn what they want to learn, and they don't have to spend as many hours in there, because I guess that was based on some of the funding too, the amount of hours the children spend in school. And there were a lot and he knew every one of the kids' names. He greeted them. as they came in the door, and if they had done something wrong, he wouldn't greet them. He would wait for them to come ask him why he didn't greet them, and then they would sit down and have a talk. But the children to approach him. And I really like that. You know, the reverse psychology and having the kids come to you, and I even had gone to school with one of the instructors from high school. I remember that from high school. He was one of my brother's friends. So I wish I had had more faith in going through with that, because that would have been really good for him. Or even I didn't think that I could do the homeschooling because I was working so much, you know.
Yeah, I think about this a lot, that, you know, especially with what's been going on in the last couple of years and the challenges that everyone's been facing with trying to do school with COVID, and the stops and starts and all the frustration. But I think that I'm always looking for a silver lining, and it seems like that for the most part, that a lot of things that people didn't think were possible before, because we always were, this is the path you take. When your child is 5, you do this. When they're 6, you do this. And the pandemic forced a lot of people to try homeschooling for the first time out of necessity, or something, you know, something else. And then I think the idea that a lot of school districts have with charter schools, or what's the other word that the private public, where they're based on
Charter and Magnet.
Charter and Magnet. I think Magnet was a big Kansas City thing. I don't know if that's gone by the wayside. But I think it would be really interesting, and this is why I'm so fascinated by what Anahita is doing. Because I think that you know, instead of trying to force kids into a you know, the same box that we've always used, and then, well, we're just going to add computers, or we're just going to add this. It doesn't recognize the different styles of learning. It doesn't recognize, you know, the different developmental stages. That say, you know, why we've decided that at you know, at somewhere everyone's going to start kindergarten at 5 or 6. Well, obviously, what if you destigmatize that and said, oh, you know, what if we threw that out the door and said, we're not going to base this on age. We're going to base this on development, and there's no right or wrong. Or we have the ability with technology, if we're willing to take a look at how we view education, we have the ability to tailor education to each student and make it totally student driven. Because what is our purpose? Originally, the original purpose of public education was to get people ready to work in the factories, and that has kind of shifted. But we're still using a lot of those same rules, and that's why I'm really fascinated with Agents of Change. I think that model could be developed and expanded, because the whole goal here, what do we want to achieve? Do we want to achieve a nation of lifelong learners who are adaptable and are civically engaged, you know, understand history, understand our place in the world? I mean, it's embarrassing how, you know, our level of intelligence as a country. So I think there's, at the same time, I'm frustrated, but I think there's lots of potential.
Just so that everyone has a little bit more background, because I don't know if everyone over here knows anything about agents of influence that Dawn mentioned. Agents of influence is an educational game that I've been working on for the past year and a half. The name originated from the Cold War era. So agents of influence were originally, spies that spread disinformation in foreign countries. We are reclaiming the term because we think agency, people's ability to make a difference and influence, their ability to kind of make impact, positive or negative, but hopefully positive, is really, really important. And we are kind of orienting it towards a game in which students are taught how to critically evaluate information and combat misinformation, because we think that that's something that's a roadblock to a lot of success in several areas. As we talk about the 4-way test, the first question is it the truth? And it's harder than ever to kind of discern what the truth is in today's day and age, because everybody has their own version of it. Just like, for example, I was reading an article on celebrity who was accused of sexual assault by 3 different women who turned up at different times. And he reported back saying that was consensual. And, that there's just a kind of extreme, like, polarization and extreme view that's being taken on it. And just my takeaway from that is that it's largely about perspective, and they haven't had these conversations. So both sides agree that there has been some kind of sexual interaction. So that's a bottom line that I could probably agree on. How consensual it was, there's probably a lot of blurred lines over them, where he interpreted it one way and they interpreted it another. They probably felt pressured in ways that they didn't completely articulate to him. And there's probably a lot of other stuff that was going on behind the scenes that we don't have complete access to. And the only way that I, at least personally, would be able to get a more robust idea of what's going on is having conversations independently with all parties, but being able to break down to what is the fact of the matter over there. And the fact of the matter is not sexual assault or, it was consensual. The fact over there is there was some level of sexual interaction. And then a lot of it becomes perspective and opinion that's kind of surrounding that. And it's important to start making these distinctions so you can start investigating information independently. And then there are other things which are like blatantly untrue. So recently on a family chat, someone had put out an article saying that the Pfizer CEO was arrested for fudging the vaccine trials. And obviously it caused panic, especially within the older generations. I, did a quick fact check on it. You have fact checkers such as Snopes that are very easily accessible, give you the background on their fact checking processes, et cetera, et cetera. The police did approach the Pfizer CEO's house. They don't have details on why, and he wasn't arrested. And therefore it is inconclusive and really jumping the gun to say that they visited him because of, fudging the trials. It could literally be a parking ticket for all anybody knows. And the source was conservative there, and that's not kind of hitting on any political ideology, but it's not a very trusted source initially. So people need to be asking, what's the credibility? How are these people getting the information? No other, article had ever referenced to this particular incident, but conservative there. So lateral reading and cross-checking over there becomes imperative. And how do we kind of mitigate these conversations? Because that was blatantly untrue. Like, he was not arrested and it wasn't for, fudging the vaccines. So those are all skills that we need to be teaching people because they form opinions based on it. And I'd recently sent on an article which was super interesting by UNESCO, in which they said the 4 biggest issues the world is facing, not just the United States, is things like sliding democracy, social fragmentation, climate change, and a 4th one that I don't remember. And they said that it was the schooling system's responsibility to be preparing people for tackling those issues. because that leads to a larger conversation you had brought up, Brenda, which is, what is the purpose of a schooling system? Is it to prepare people to be engaged citizens? Is it to prepare them for their career? Is it to socially engage them or prepare them to be, functioning members of a civil society? Like, mostly the answer is all of the above to different degrees. And the schooling system doesn't currently do an effective job in covering all of those bases. And it's a tough conversation because they don't have a lot of resources. It's a very bureaucratic, hierarchical institution. So change making is an extremely slow process. There's a number of barriers that preventing the school systems from progressing the way that they need to, and change needs to be both top down and bottom up for there to be an effective movement towards what the world needs the next generation to be equipped with, and comparing that to what's comfortable and tried and tested and used previously. And how do we kind of move that dial forward? And agents of influence is far from a let's solve everything kind of problem, but the goal over there is to be working with other interventions for two main purposes. One is to get people engaged with issues. Like if you ask most students, like, what do you think about critical thinking and misinformation? They're going to say, let's talk about it, like maybe in a couple weeks or never, like that's just not an issue they feel connected to. And the number one goal of this game is to make students feel connected to these kinds of issues. And the number two purpose is to let them have agency in various ways. So as a game, you can learn at your own pace. You can, finish in 15 minutes if you're really quick about it. You can stop, start, ask friends, Google things, do it as a group, whatever it is. It's designed super flexibly in that format. And you can connect it to several areas. So one, we've been hoping to give people, further resources on relevant conversations, such as civics education, media literacy education, just misinformation. So tools like fact checkers, websites. I don't know if you all know all sites. I imagine you know all sites, websites like all sites, media bias charts, etc. So giving you a full toolkit on that and related topics. But we've actually also been having conversations with a lot of nonprofits that we're really excited about, and giving people direction towards direct social causes that they may be interested in. So the idea of agents of influence is to cultivate people's agency and influence. And one of the ways to do that is obviously to prepare themselves to be more engaged and better and function better in the society that we're living in. But another way is to directly engage in issues that you care about and have conversations. So we want to have a lot of resources such as this room, where people can just come and talk about issues that they want to talk about, or they can go out and straight up join things to mitigate climate change or homelessness or anything else that they care about, and give them several kind of opportunities to do so on different levels, because often people think that the only way to get involved in causes is direct advocacy, which is completely, inaccurate and misleading. Instead, if we're talking about the problem of, say, climate change, for example, there's several career opportunities which will allow you to pursue those interests. So green tech, for example, is a really effective way, if your background is more engineering, to be able to still be actively contributing to that cause. If you're able to organize things, being not just active lobbyists, but also organizing a lot of initiatives. So we're interested in seeing how we can make agents of influence a gateway in a lot of ways for students to kind of learn at their own pace and find what's important to them and hopefully have the interest to pursue that. So that's some background on what I'm doing.
Great.
But yes, back to Dawn. And if anyone has any questions, thoughts, ideas, happy to kind of talk about that further as well.
Oh, I just want to say I really loved hearing about it. So thank you for going into it. I had done some reading that Don had sent me about it. So, but this was great. It was really wonderful to get your direct perspective on it.
Thank you.
So there, Brenda, was there anything else on your mind from the conversation we've been having?
Well, I had some other questions, but those have been dispelled right now. I'm very interested in what she had to say. I'm writing stuff down over here.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's very much an ongoing initiative. If you're interested in testing the game, we actually have play tests coming up in the next week or so.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's an open invitation to all of you. If you want, I'm just going to put the link in. I recently, let me see, would you all be interested in just having the link to playtesting?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let me find
And if you don't mind that that one Rotary explanation that you put in, that was really good too. If you don't mind putting that link in as well.
what Rotary explanation?
Oh, you sent me 3 links or 4 links. That's okay. You know what? If I'll find it and send it out to everyone if that's
Cool. So here is, I'm just going to copy paste an email and put it in the chat. Because that's probably what's easiest to do, but I would love to have any of you come and test the game if that's of interest to you in the next 10 or so days. We are primarily testing with, why won't it let me copy? I mean paste. All right, we've got this. I think it's too long. All right, here we are. I'm going to, here it's just there we go. All right, this is just the form to test the game. You'll see the times and everything that we have in it. But if you all are interested, like, please feel free to come in. We'd love as much feedback as possible. If you, at this stage, we are mostly testing with adults. Our next stage is going to be testing with students, simply because we realized we were taking on too much while trying to test with adults and students at the same time. We are particularly interested in having educators test the game at this stage. So if you personally know any educators who may be interested in coming over, like, please share the link with them. And just like related conversation, I wanted to thank you, Don, for bringing to my attention. I didn't realize just the depth of alignment our game had with the Rotary 4-way test. And after that, we really embraced that alignment. And we've been doing several presentations now. We've done 14 presentations so far to Rotary clubs across the country. And we have about 35 of them set up. So that's something that we are actively working on. It's because, really, frankly, we need more resources. We cannot continue development of the game until we get more funding in. It's really tough for the team at this stage, because I used to say last year that we were old enough to know what we were doing, but young enough to live on our parents' couch. Now that we're over a year out of college, that feels less like the case. So there's a lot more pressure, especially now that COVID is not, dipping out, but kind of allowing for some sense of normalcy to come back to our lives. My teammates are in a position where their parents are pressuring them to go out and be adults. And that's just a really tough situation where they are no longer to continue contributing to the project unless they have some stability in terms of funding and finances. So that's the stage that we're in. And we've been going to Rotary clubs, just asking people for resources, but also sharing what we're doing. And we've started our meetings, our presentations now, by asking people, can you recite the 4-way test for us? And how has the 4-way test impacted your life / how do you use it? And the results have been really, really interesting. So just wanted to share with you what that experience has been like, because that's something Dawn directly turned us on to. And there are people who've walked away from funding because they would only fund one student and a group of students to go to college, and they thought it wasn't fair to all concerned. There are people who were talking about how they have their fundraisers themselves, and how honesty needs to be what they're leading anything that they're with, because if you're not speaking the truth, then no one's going to believe in you and advocate for you. They talk about how they have been using these ideals in raising their children and asking their children to be considerate of all of these questions before they go and do any actions themselves. So it's been a really interesting process of just hearing the different ways that people have been using the four-way test, because the four-way test is just really a very strong guiding principle to train people into being just more thoughtful, better human beings. I think what it does is it gets people to be mindful, which really honestly not a lot of people are. You just kind of live life on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis without really thinking about your actions and their consequences. And what the Rotary four-way test does is that it focuses people on to the consequences of your actions. Like, if you do this action, is it beneficial to all concerned? What are you making this decision based on? Is it the truth? So that mindfulness goes a really, really long way in preparing people to be just better humans. Despite that, honestly, I've been surprised by how much resistance certain Rotary clubs have given. There are certain people who have been very dismissive of our ideas in ways that I was really surprised by. And there are also people who have been bought into this, philosophy, but have not completely computed how their actions align with that. So in terms of politics, because this is a very political topic, as you all know, I've had certain people come up to me and say, love what you're doing. I'm super left wing and I want to overcome these right wing Nazis. And, that's super problematic rhetoric, because what you're doing over there is that you're othering, a certain segment of people. And like, we're talking about polarization in the country. I actually recently in discussion realized the parallels of the circumstances we are going through to British Raj actually in India, because when we were conquered by the Britishers, before we were conquered, there's a letter that the head of East India Company had sent back to the Queen. And it said that these are very powerful people. The only way we can conquer them is if we turn them against each other. So they use this philosophy of divide and rule. And there's lots of historic evidence of spreading of lies and turning people against one another. So they crumbled on the inside, and the Britishers could step in and just start overthrowing independent countries that, because India wasn't a complete country at that point, and start uniting it under British rule. And while, we don't know for sure that that is the exact circumstances that are happening, the symptoms are very aligned with how things were playing out over there. And one of the most important things we can do right now is try to be mindful of all of our differences, but try and see where we converge. Like Dawn, something I found very compelling, and the Democracy in a Box pitch when I was looking through it, was that he had the slide of two politicians from both sides of the spectrum saying that people need to know where the money is coming from. And one of the big questions that we ask is like, what is the purpose of this? And that is very, deeply connected with the idea of where's the money coming from, because who's funding it is determining what the purpose of whatever information is going out there is. And by showing that this was a topic that across the political spectrum, people felt the need to address. You were uniting people despite political umbrellas, which I think is so important to do, especially at a time like this. No response. Go for it, Zachary.
Oh, I really resonate with so much that you're saying. One thing that stood out to me, just because I am really passionate about it right now, is the idea that you have people on your team who are, from my understanding, really excited about the project, but they have pressure from their parents, from maybe some pressure from society to do something else, to make, I'm guessing it mostly comes down to making money, so if this were something where they were paid for it, that would be different. But I really, I don't know how to say it, resonate with that challenge, and that's really what that's the one I want to solve more than anything is, and I don't have the answers, but I'm really engaged in all the ways. I think we need to be experimenting a lot more with how money flows through our economy, and how energy flows through our economy, because from my perspective, your team working on this kind of project is incredibly valuable to society, to the world, to all of us. But the fact that it's, I feel like it takes a lot of effort to get the money flowing in this way. I can see you're putting in a lot of work to get that going, and that's just something I care about a lot, is how do we get it to where people can work on these really important things that they really want to work on. I trust individuals to be doing what is important for the world, and I think about it in really in all of these cases, we could be, I think, solving a lot of problems if people were more empowered with enough income to meet their needs, live their life, to get to the point. My goal is to get people to the point where they have more than enough for what they need, and can make good decisions from there. Anyway, I just wanted to chime in on that, because that's what I get really excited about.
Very curious, what have you been discovering in your kind of searches for this? Like, what are the processes you've been going through to get deeper into the problem? What have you discovered about the flow of money? Are there any solutions? What kind of solutions have you encountered? Like, what's your what has your discovery been, and what's this journey looking like?
Yeah, I'll touch on it. I'll touch on it quickly, because I do realize we're coming up on the hour. But so some things, obviously, so some things that are interesting me are something like universal basic income that could, provide a floor for people, and would kind of possibly even out the flow of money, because of we have a lot of large corporations that aren't paying any taxes, or we're paying sometimes higher taxes than our wealthiest corporations and even individuals. And so that's one approach. But I also, what I want to the other ways I want to support people are possibly finding independent or like individual funding. I look at a lot of crowdfunding possibilities, and possibly making I feel like it kind of has to be a social change, but I think a lot about the idea of possibly funding individuals, even not instead of, but in addition to funding projects, and in addition to funding things, if we could fund an individual person and get, you know, kind of a community of support around a person, that's something that potentially could be a lifelong income for a person that would give them freedom to go change their course as they notice what's most important, rather than, you know, committing to a project or a direction and then kind of being stuck in a place where I see something better that would be better for the goals I'm trying to achieve, but I still have to sell this. I still have to sell this thing because this is what's sustained me so far. So that is, I mean, that's very much in its infancy, but that's one angle that I'm talking with people about and looking at. And then a third thing is just trying to find ways to give people support to do this on their own and to make changes. Just talking with people, giving them the opportunity to kind of pull their head up from whatever they're involved in and let them know, yeah, they can make changes. And I'm really passionate about people doing it in the way that they want to. Like, I want to help them create their happy level of income in the way that they want to. So if they have certain ideas about it or certain beliefs, I want to go with that and support them in that direction, because I think that's more effective, and I don't want to pretend like I have all the answers. Oh, Brenda, sorry.
I am one of his projects. And he's doing, it's, you know how Tony Robbins and all those motivational speakers will give you a plan to get there, but it's their plan and not yours. And he's doing the exact opposite. It's very people-based.
Thank you, Brenda. So I'd be happy to talk more about this, but as we're getting to the hour, I know I just wanted to say that yes, anyone is free to go if you have other things to do. Don and I will, or actually, I don't know, I didn't check with you, Don, but I'll stay on for another half hour at this point. And Don, is there anything I'm forgetting as like the wrap up at the hour?
We'll send out the announcement. I think we're gonna we're trying to do this every other week so that we can kind of build on this to make this an ongoing conversation, because obviously this is so fascinating. We didn't get to everything we would like to, but I think we're going to maybe skip, because the 2 weeks from now is the second, or it's right after or it's the first of the year. I think it's in the new year. So maybe we'll skip 1 week and we'll go with the Saturday after that, but I'll send out a notice on that. And if you enjoyed this, please forward the link to anyone who you think might benefit from it.
Good. I'd love to chat more about that with you, Zachary. What do you prefer?
Zachary, but you can also call me Zach, and I will answer.
If it's so, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Boom.